Long ago, in the prosperous Kingdom of Manyara, there lived a mighty king named Kanyaga, a warrior whose courage was praised across mountains and rivers. His people loved him, his armies feared him, and his throne stood firm upon the carved stones of his ancestors. But there was one thing the great Oba did not have: an heir. He had a wife he adored, Queen Lolendo, a woman whose beauty was matched only by her kindness. After years of marriage, she blessed him with a daughter. Then another. And another. And then a fourth. The land rejoiced because daughters were blessings, bringers of peace, healers of generations. The king rejoiced for each child, but a shadow had begun to grow in his heart. For tradition whispered that a king needed a son to carry the throne. And tradition was a powerful whisperer. The decision that cracked the palace walls. By the birth of the fourth girl, pressure from the elders' council had grown heavy. Courtiers murmured behind the king's back. His brother, Prince Mona, often reminded him. A tree without a strong branch will fall, my brother. Manyara needs a prince. Though Queen Lolendo urged him not to give in to fear, the king, torn between love and legacy, made a decision he would later regret. He took a second wife. A woman named Abeni, clever and graceful. The kingdom buzzed with gossip, but Abeni bore him a daughter, and then another daughter. The whispers grew louder. Prince Mona wore a smile too wide for comfort. Maybe, he said one night, your destiny lies with a third wife. Blinded by desperation, the king agreed. Enter the third wife. The third wife was called Nyorai, a woman with a mysterious past and a beauty so striking that even the moon seemed to pause and admire her. The moment she entered the palace, the wind seemed to shift. The servants avoided her gaze, and the queen felt the unease she couldn't explain. Within months, Nyorai announced she was with child. And when the baby arrived, a boy, the kingdom erupted with celebration so loud it shook the hills. The king danced. He wept. He named the boy Prince Katana, his long-awaited son. But from that moment, King Kanyaga began to ignore his other wives and daughters. The palace shifted around the new prince, like planets orbiting a bright but unstable star. Little did the king know, the prince was not his son at all. The child belonged to the one person he trusted like blood itself. Prince Mona, his own younger brother. And the plot was darker than night. Prince Mona had always envied his brother, the crown, the power, the admiration of the people. As children, he had once asked their father, "Why Kanyaga and not me?" Their father had replied, "Because a good king listens with his heart, not his hunger." Those words became a wound. So when Mona realized the king's desperation for an heir, he crafted a plan more cunning than a hyena stalking prey. He found Nyorai in a distant village, ambitious, beautiful, and hungry for power. Together they forged a secret pact. She would marry the king. Mona would father a son with her. The boy would grow up as the king's heir. And when the time was right, Mona would claim the throne through his son. Their deception was flawless. The king, blinded by desire for a male heir, saw only what he wanted to see. But secrets, like buried seeds, always grow. Among the king's daughters was one with eyes sharper than hawk claws. Princess Kelile, the king's eldest. Kelile loved her father deeply, yet each day she watched sorrowfully as he drifted farther from her mother and sisters. She noticed things others ignored, how Queen Nyorai whispered often with Prince Mona in shadowed corners, how servants hurried away whenever those two approached, how the story of the newborn prince felt too smooth, too polished, too perfect to be real. Kelile began to follow trails that no one else cared to see. One moonless night, her quiet steps led her down a dim corridor behind the council room. She heard raised voices, Nyorai and Mona arguing sharply, their silhouettes flickering in the lantern light. "Nyorai, you promised me power." But the king grew suspicious. He asks too many questions. "Mona, patience." When he steps down, the boy will rule. And through him, we rule. Kilile's heart thundered like a war drum. Her hands trembled, but her resolve hardened. She ran to her mother. Queen Lolendo listened without a word. Her expression did not break, but deep in her eyes, a storm gathered. Instead of rushing to the king, she summoned her co-wives quietly that night. Though once rivals, Lolendo and Abeni had grown bonded by shared neglect and the silent wounds the king left behind. When Abeni arrived, Lolendo spoke in a low, steady voice. All of us were pushed aside. But together, we can protect our home, our daughters, our kingdom. Abeni nodded. Even Queen Nyarai's betrayal could not divide the two women who had learned strength in silence. Still, Lolendo knew accusations without proof would only be twisted against them. So she made discreet inquiries among palace elders, midwives, and attendants. Whispers led her to two elderly midwives, the same ones present at the birth of Queen Nyarai's miracle son. That night, Lolendo invited the old women into her private chamber. She offered them warm palm tea, soft cushions, and gentle company. She did not threaten them. She did not coerce them. She simply asked, "Sisters, what truth weighs upon your hearts?" The midwives exchanged nervous glances. One trembled. The other burst into tears. And then, they began to speak. Their confession was broken, hesitant, but devastating. What they revealed would shake the palace to its bones. Lolendo and Abeni listened, their faces still, but their spirits aflame. They finally heard the truth. Now, they needed the kingdom to hear it. As dawn approached and the midwife slipped quietly back into the shadows, Lolendo rose to her feet. Her voice was soft, but filled with iron. "It is time. At the festival of ancestral flames, everything will be revealed." And with that, the night prepared to give birth to a storm. One that would change Manyara forever. The festival of ancestral flames was only 3 days away. In the Kingdom of Manyara, it was the most sacred celebration of the year. A night when the people lit giant fireballs to honor their ancestors and ask for guidance for the future. It was also the one night when every villager, elder, warrior, and royal gathered in the same place. It was the perfect place for the truth to be revealed. But Queen Lolendo knew they had to be careful. Mwana was cunning, and Nyarai was desperate. If they suspected anything, they could flee, or worse, strike first. So the women acted as though nothing had changed. Queen Lolendo continued her gardening. Queen Abeni joined in daily palace tasks with a gentle smile. Princess Kelile remained in her father's public events, hiding her new knowledge behind polite bows. But at night, the 3 women planned. The midwives, moved by guilt, agreed to speak publicly if protected. Abeni arranged for 2 trusted guards to remain near them silently. Kelile watched Nyarai and Mona closely, noting their growing impatience. Meanwhile, Queen Nyarai could feel the king pulling closer to her and further from everyone else. She played her role perfectly, soft, obedient, devoted, never giving him reason to doubt her. But inside, her nerves twisted like snakes. Prince Mona was worse. His ambition boiled dangerously. Every time the king carried the baby boy through the palace, Mona's eyes gleamed too brightly. He saw the throne as already his. On the morning before the festival, Queen Lolendo approached the king. Not with accusation. Not with anger. But with a calm voice that pierced deeper than any shout. "My king," she said, bowing, "tomorrow we honor our ancestors. It would bring the palace great peace if all your daughters stood beside you." The king paused. His guilt flickered, but pride drowned it quickly. Still, Lolendo's tone was gentle enough, respectful enough, that he could not refuse. "Very well," he said. "Bring them." And so, the daughters, girls once ignored, prepared their finest braided hairstyles and colorful gowns. The palace servants whispered in awe, They had not seen all the princesses presented together in a long time. As night fell, the festival of ancestral flames began. Drums echoed across the valley. Giant fireballs roared to life like golden songs. Dancers in feathered masks spun across the courtyard. Children waved small torches. Elders chanted blessings. The entire kingdom of Manyara glowed in the firelight. King Kanyaga sat upon the ceremonial throne, Queen Nyara beside him, the baby boy in her arms. Prince Mona stood close, smiling a little too widely. But that smile froze when Queen Abene and Queen Lolendo stepped into the firelit circle, with the midwives behind them. The crowd murmured. The king frowned. Princess Kelile moved quietly to the center as well, her face steady and calm. Queen Lolendo lifted her chin. The time had come. She spoke, firm, unshaken. My king, before our ancestors tonight, a truth must be told. Silence fell so heavy that even the drum stopped. The firelight flickered. The baby whimpered. Every eye in Manyara turned toward the queens. Lolendo stepped forward. And the truth was ready to burst into the open. The child you celebrate, she began, is not your son. The crowd gasped. Prince Mona's fist tightened. Queen Nyara's smile shattered. Before either could speak, the midwife stepped forward. And kneeling before the king, they confessed. And the entire kingdom held its breath. The crowd stood frozen. Even the fireballs seemed to shrink, as though the flames themselves were listening. The two elderly midwives trembled, but Queen Lolendo placed a steadying hand on their shoulders. With a deep breath, the first midwife spoke. Great king, the child born to Queen Nyara is not of your blood. A wave of shocked murmurs rolled across the courtyard. The second midwife, tears streaking down her wrinkled cheeks, added. Prince Mona bribed us. We were ordered to hide the true birth, to replace the child with another. Forgive us, great one, we were afraid. The king's face shifted, confusion, disbelief, insult, rage, each emotion rising and crashing like a storm tide. His breath grew heavier. His crown felt heavier. Lies, the king thundered. His voice boomed across the courtyard like rolling thunder. Prince Mona stepped forward immediately. Brother, do not listen to them. These old women are confused. But before he could finish, Princess Kelile walked out of the shadows and raised her voice, clear and strong. I heard you. Both of you. I heard your plan. Gasps burst from the crowd once again. All eyes turned to the princess with the sharp hawk eyes. She stood tall, fearless. You said the king would step down. That through the boy, you would rule. Mona's entire body stiffened. Nyara clenched her jaw, gripping the baby tighter. Kelile continued, her voice calm but blazing with truth. You plotted to steal a kingdom built by our ancestors. You nearly tore our family apart. Queen Nyara finally snapped. Her voice cracked like a whip. Enough. None of you deserve this throne. I earned it, me. She pointed at the baby in her arms. He is my path to power, I will not lose again. The crowd recoiled. Even the baby cried in her arms. The king stood slowly, every muscle trembling with betrayal. Nyara, he said quietly, did you deceive me? Her answer was a bitter laugh. Prince Mona saw the guards moving closer and panicked. He grabbed the child's cloth, shouting. This kingdom was mine by right. You were too weak to lead. I only took what you failed to protect. The king's expression hardened, like stone forged in fire. Then he raised his hand. Guards, seize them both. Chaos erupted. Nyara tried to run. Mona shoved villagers aside, desperately trying to escape. Guards surged forward. Shields shining, spears ready. With one swift motion, the baby slipped from Nyara's arms. But Kelile leapt forward like a gazelle, catching the child before he hit the ground. The crowd cheered her bravery. Nyara fought wildly, but the guards overpowered her. Her emerald robes ripped as they held her down. Mona made it to the palace steps. But a spear slammed down in front of him, blocking his path. He stumbled backward and fell to his knees. There was no escape. As the traitors were dragged to the judgment circle, the king looked at the baby in Kilile's arms. A child who had been used as a pawn. His heart broke. He touched the child's head gently. You are innocent. You will be raised with love, not deceit. Kelile smiled softly and held the baby close. Then the king turned to face the gathered kingdom. His voice, once angry, now sounded tired. Deeply wounded. I have been blind, he said slowly. Blind to the love of my wives, blind to the worth of my daughters, blind to your suffering. He looked at Lulendo and Abeni, women who had endured so much. I wronged you. I wronged our daughters. And I wronged Manyara. The crowd fell silent again. Even the fire listened. Queen Lulendo stepped forward, her voice gentle. The truth has been revealed. Now let justice and healing begin. The king bowed his head. Justice will be done. And healing, I pray, will follow. The kingdom waited, breath held, hearts pounding. For what would happen next? And in that charged silence, the path toward redemption began to open. The courtyard was still glowing with the fireballs when King Kanyaga's decree fell upon Prince Mona and Queen Nyara. Their punishments were carried out, their shadows lifted from the kingdom. But one question remained. A soft cry rose from Kilile's arms, the baby boy, too young to understand the darkness that had surrounded him. The crowd turned to the child. He blinked up at the flames, innocent, unaware, pure. Queen Lulendo stepped forward first and placed a warm hand over Kilile's. The child is not to blame for the sins of his parents, she said gently. Abeni nodded. Yes. No child enters this world bearing another's guilt. The king looked down at the boy, torn between grief and compassion. For all the deception, the child had brought moments of joy into his palace, moments he would not discard. He breathed deeply, straightening with resolve. Let the boy be raised where no hatred follows him, King Kanyaga declared. A place where he can grow without crowns or schemes, without whispers behind his back. He turned to the two elderly midwives, the same women who had helped uncover the truth with courage and honesty. You have shown wisdom beyond measure. Take the child to the village of Dawn River. Raise him with kindness. Protect him from the shadows of his parents' choices. The midwives bowed deeply, their faces warm with maternal devotion. We will raise him as our own, they promised. A hush settled over the kingdom as the midwives wrapped the baby boy in soft cloth. Kelile kissed his forehead softly. Lie freely, little one, she whispered. Grow in peace. Queen Lulendo placed a protective charm in the infant's blanket, an amulet of good fortune. Abeni added a tiny carved lion, symbol of strength. King Kanyaga spoke a final blessing over him. May your future be brighter than the path that brought you here. The drum softened to a gentle rhythm as the midwives began their humble walk to the distant village, a place far from the palace walls, where rivers sparkled and children ran barefoot in the morning sun. A village where no one knew of thrones or betrayals, only love. The baby boy slept peacefully in their arms, unaware that his life had just been saved by mercy. When the child was gone, safe and free, the king faced his family once more. He removed his crown, fell to his knees, and begged forgiveness. And they forgave him. The festival roared to life again, dancers whirling, drums thundering, lanterns rising to the stars. And Kelile, crowned future queen of Manyara, stepped forward to address her people, her voice strong and filled with hope. Let this be the beginning of a new age, she proclaimed. An age where daughters shine and sons are cherished. An age where truth walks openly, and love never hides. The kingdom erupted in joy. Fireworks of sparks rose into the night sky. The drums of unity pounded. And peace settled over Manyara, deep, lasting, and earned. And so, from the Kingdom of Manyara, a lesson travels across generations. A throne built on pride will always crack. But a home built on love will forever stand. King Kanyaga learned that children, whether sons or daughters, are blessings, not trophies. A wise ruler listens to truth, even when truth comes from the humble. No child deserves to carry the weight of another's sins. Unity among women is stronger than jealousy sown between them. And a heart that admits its wrongs is greater than a crown that hides them. For in the end, it was not warriors who saved the kingdom, nor sorcery, nor armies, but the courage of daughters, the wisdom of mothers, and the humility of a king willing to change. May all who hear this tale remember: honor your family, cherish every child, and guard your home not with suspicion, but with love, truth, and unity. Only then will peace, like the dawn, return each morning. And that is the lesson from the Kingdom of Manyara. A home built on love cannot be shaken. Daughters are treasures. And humility turns even a broken heart into a wise one. May we all learn to choose truth over pride, unity over jealousy, and kindness over fear. Thank you for listening to this tale from African Tales of Nubia. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe, so more stories can find their way to you.